Dus bhfuil mo chuid buchas a chuid le haine daoine a churann ihe seo le céile is a han mai agus mo chuid buchas a rís. Thank you all for organising this evening, and it's very useful to be here, and it's very useful for us all to consider this. For probably maybe 90 years since the foundation of this misfortunate state, the ending of the British connection, the ending of partition, and the reunification, the political reunification of this island could have been described perhaps as an aspiration. We condemned the injustice of partition, the refusal to recognise the democratic justification of the first law, the legitimacy of its mandate, the legitimacy of the popular vote of 80% of the people who voted for a new republic. We objected and criticised, and rightly did so, and highlighted the gross injustices perpetrated by Unionism from the instigation of this state. But at all time, and for much of those years, whether we contested the union with Britain and the partition of the island, while we contested it, whether we contested it by criticism or by arms, it was an aspiration that we would break the connection. Now, however, over the last few years, I think it's quite evident that it's no longer simply an aspiration, but it's now an expectation that we will break the connection with Britain, that we will end partition, that we will reunite politically this island. And I think that is incredibly significant, that there is now an expectation that both the previous speakers have referred to and done so very eloquently. And as such, I think it's important, therefore, that we look at what we're faced with. This northern state is a failed state. It has failed to provide economically, socially, or politically. Within the last couple of days, this state has been without an administration. The problems that are faced with bringing that administration together are enormous, whether it's set up again or not, but the state politically has failed. Economically, it has failed. Socially, it has failed. Unionism is of the opinion that this is a colony over which they have absolute control. Unionism itself has even failed on the number one position. As Unionists, they have failed to persuade us of the value of the Union. In fact, they have done everything possible to convince us that the Union is unsustainable, unwelcome, and unwanted. There's also the question, therefore, that as we're approaching, as Arlene Foster has reminded us, the century of this state, that we reinforce the fact that this state is in, as has been said recently, I think it was Mary Lou MacDonald mentioned the fact that we're now in the end game. And this is something that I think is incredibly important that we continue to press for. And as such, it is important, I would argue, that we do not ease the pressure on unionism, ease the pressure on Britain, or ease the pressure also, keep in mind, on Dublin. We have to press forward for whether it's a border poll, an all-Ireland referendum, whatever means possible, we have to continue to emphasise the need to bring an end to this political arrangement. And there's a number of reasons for that. One, we have to keep in mind that south of the border, that the Dublin establishment is very opposed to the idea of ending partition. Bertie Ahern mentioned the fact that a 50+1% vote in a border poll would not be sufficient, in his opinion, should not be used as a landmark or a benchmark for changing partition. He argued for a much higher percentage. Recently, Leo Varadkar has said something similar. The idea being that they will preserve partition even if there is a majority against partition on this island. Think of that. The fact is that they are afraid that in the aftermath of a successfully conducted campaign to end partition, an electorate that would vote 50+1, which is the benchmark of any democracy, accepted by the British for Scotland, that the Dublin government would resist this because they fear that the ending of partition will end the cosy arrangement, the establishment that has held its position south of the border since they bought into this partitioned state. The idea that you go slow on unification is effectively saying we don't want it. For these reasons, we must press ahead. We must make the case that it is not acceptable to hold back, that going slow in an attempt to stop the inevitable is practically saying that we'll not have it, we don't want it. We've heard recently their comments from Simon Coveney that Brexit shouldn't be mistaken as an excuse for bringing about a united Ireland. That's the establishment in the South. We know quite well what the view is from the DUP or the Ulster Unionist Party. That's to be expected. But what also is happening is that the border poll has to be taken, and this is a point that Kieran makes about whether a border poll, if it's called now, whether it's successful in removing partition or not, it is imperative this a living reality, that unionism comes to realise that this is the end game for unionism, that whether the first border poll or referendum, or call it what you like, whether it returns a majority in favour of unity, that this second referendum, a third referendum, but whatever happens, that this will change, that this northern state, this misfortunate northern state is in terminal decline and nothing will save it. And the point being that we have got to emphasise this as reality therapy for unionism, that they can no longer live in this protected environment, live under the illusion that nothing will change, that the not an inch, no surrender mentality will allow them to hold on to their position. And as such, that the option they have is not whether to hold on to this glorious little Ulster, this little colony of theirs, but that they have of necessity to negotiate the future, that it's imperative that they do so, and that we Republicans, Socialist Republicans, are very willing to sit and talk practically, generously and openly with our neighbours. But there are certain conditions that we will not concede. There will not be an independent Ulster. There will not be another colony or a dominion status. That we, in the words of Liam Lynch, General Liam Lynch, we have declared for a republic and will not live under any other law. And that's quite important, because at this stage I think we should cast our mind back to the risks created when in the past we failed to recognise the difference between simple unity and a republic, and therein lay the difficulties and the problems that effectively generated the Civil War. That as Republicans, we've declared for a republic. We have not declared for United Ireland. A United Ireland is a necessity, an essential necessity on the way to a republic. But we cannot settle, and that's something we have to talk about and understand ourselves, because there is the difficulty and the problem that Britain will attempt to exert its control through us unless we have a democratic, sovereign Irish Republic. So, for a number of reasons, we've got to understand that this border poll, if it comes about, and it may not come and it will not come at our request, this could be sprung on us, this could be surprised, this could be orchestrated by the British, by the Dublin government in order to offset, to leave us on the back foot. So therefore we cannot leave the initiative with the opposition. We cannot allow them to dictate. We've got to have the initiative if we possibly can at all times. And we can take the initiative if we cooperate, come together and work for it. And on that basis, we have got to come to realise as well that this is not something that is in the gift of London, it's not in the gift of the DUP, that this is a demand that we're making. We're going to be very reasonable in terms of negotiating, but we have a bottom line, but that we must have the initiative, that we are not on our knees begging for concessions from Britain, because therefore we'll not accept that terms from them. So yes, we are looking at the need to press forward, whether it's a border poll or a referendum. We must make it clear that this state is in terminal decline. We understand that, and we must now begin to negotiate among ourselves and open the door to negotiations with our neighbours for what will happen. But something that was once said in South Africa, the South African Liberation Movement one time said, socialism is the future, so therefore let's start to build it today. I think we could use that as an example. A new republic is what we need. We need to start building it now, and we need to look at the process by which we do it. There's no point waiting until something is surprised or sprung on us, and we're left then trying to make up our mind how we will deal with it. But in conclusion, I think this is an incredibly encouraging development. It's a very welcome development to see a broad-based panel like this, and again, congratulations to yourselves for having organised it and chaired it, and to all that has participated in this very encouraging and welcoming evening. So thank you all.
When the trouble